everyone. If you joined me just a little while ago on my Facebook Live with Vicky, wow, right? I was just telling Jessi, because of course she's been adjusting people all day, about our venue for the Women's Mind, Body, Spirit Boot Camp and Retreat, October 9th and 10th in Gulf Shores, Alabama. We're having it at a state park. And I'm super excited. Alabama is green, so they don't have COVID restrictions on them. So if you're someone who is sick of COVID restrictions, another reason to join us. But this place has over 6,000 acres. What'd you say? 9 different ecosystems, 28 miles of trails, a mile from the beach. It is just incredible. So I'm really excited that we're having it there. And that's why Jessi and I are together, but in front of all of you this evening, is so we can talk to you about the Women's Mind, Body, Spirit Boot Camp. On Friday is all about women's health. And so I have asked Jessi to come and teach us about women's pelvic health, pelvic floor health. So Jessi, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Sorry, you're breaking up a little.
Yeah.
Bit. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and Jessi is no stranger to doing Facebook Lives with me. Jessi and I met in January of 2018. I love to brag on this woman. First and foremost, she's a wonderful friend. Secondly, because she is just a rock star. So she joined the boot camp as a student. And Jessi, I'm just going to have you toot your own horn for a minute, girl, because you deserve it. Like, what's this journey been like in 2.5 years? And none of you are going to believe it, but it's all true. So here's the cool thing is if you spot it, you got it. So when Jessi tells her story, if you can spot that you want to be successful like she has been, you have the ability and you can do it too. So Jessi, let's hear your story.
Okay, so I joined the boot camp. I think our very first call was December of 2017. It was like right around Christmas, New Year's. I had play work. I was getting ready to graduate from Palmer, and I was doing my internship in Denver, Colorado area, so specifically Lakewood. And I was trying to figure out kind of my next steps. And I've always thought I was going to open my own practice, and then kind of started doing the prep work for it and freaked out. And my husband's like, Jessi, this has been your dream forever. Why would you go associate? You don't want to work for anyone else. You've always really only been self-employed. And so why don't you find someone that can help you? And so I did, and I reached out to Dr. Barb, and I actually reached out to a few people, and I feel like I connected best. Oh, hi, Bailey. I feel like I connected best with Dr. Barb, and I felt like she was going to get me to where I needed to go. And so that's kind of where we started. And so I joined as a student still, and then graduated. I was working in this practice, just his office manager was on maternity leave. So it was just kind of like, okay, when I graduate, I'll stay there, just cover her maternity leave. And then we moved to Iowa to build my own practice here. And so moved here in April, May of 2018, and then opened my practice June 4th. And the rest is kind of history. It's just been busy and the best experience ever. I've got, it's been fun. I got my first month's overhead covered in a week open. So that was exciting. And since then we've just been growing. I just hired an associate doc. So I've actually been waiting for him for about the last year. And so he's a DAC bar went through the DAC bar schooling. So he's got to take his test. And so, yeah, he'll start after Labor Day. And yeah, we've just been growing since. So
what Jessi failed to leave out is over COVID in June, she paid off her last student loan.
Oh, yeah, I did that too.
So she's been in practice. In 2 years, she paid off her student loan, opened her own practice. They built a new home. She had another child. So she has 2 children under the age of 3. So, like, whatever excuses you have, listen, we have reasons to believe that you can be successful too. So, Jessi, congratulations. And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this journey. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for getting me to where I'm at.
Yeah. So, Jessi is teaching the pelvic floor portion of the Women's Mind, Body, Spirit Boot Camp and Retreat. So all day on Friday, we're all going to be learning together. pelvic floor, women's wellness. Dr. Angie Pufal is teaching women's wellness. We're doing an adjusting portion. Dr. Melissa LaMarche is teaching that portion. There'll be a female health performance, female, like how do we recover from injury? Jessi, like I said, is specifically, we're doing, Dr. Christina Stitcher is going to be there to talk about women and cancer. As a cancer survivor herself, she's going to be sharing with us her journey from a chiropractic perspective, how we can best support women who are going through that journey and on the backs, on the other side of it. So Jessi, let's talk about pelvic health. I got to say, it's not a subject that was ever brought up when I was in practice, and certainly not, even in my history until recently. Why is it something that finally we're talking about? Like, it's not like the pelvis is new to any of us.
Absolutely. So this is actually something that I don't really remember learning much about it in school. I actually first got introduced to this. My bachelor's in strength and conditioning, and then I have a master's in sport performance. And so I kind of got introduced to this on an internship for my master's degree. And I was seeing that the strength and conditioning coach was working with these female athletes on pelvic floor stuff. And at first I thought, whoa, way out of your scope of practice. But the strength changes and the other, just getting people out of pain in general that he could have on these athletes was incredible without having to make them uncomfortable. And so that's where I was like, oh, you can actually do pelvic floor work without doing internal move work, which is not comfortable. It's something I don't personally want to do to my patients or for my patients. And this way we can talk about what's going on and actually fix it and give them useful stuff that they can do at home to fix it. The stats on this is absolutely, it's just crazy to see how big of a problem it is and how many people don't know that there's other options out there. So typically, and it's kind of like I said, it's a silent epidemic. Like, a lot of times we think that to have a pelvic floor dysfunction that you had to have kids. And that is so not true. And that's when I didn't realize, when we were working with all these athletes when I was doing my master's, is that none of these athletes had kids. And so I couldn't figure out, why on earth are we doing pelvic floor work for people that haven't had kids? Turns out it affects everyone. So
why is it something that is just now? Has it always been around? Has something changed in our environment and our culture that is now making it where we have weak pelvic floors? What's going on?
Yes, and yes. Some of it's just, it happens because, keep in mind too, we also sit a lot. And so in a portion of this course, I'm actually going to teach about some diaphragm stuff that will help, and other things that you can do outside of, because I don't want to do any internal work on my patients personally. Some people do, and that's fine. But I want to make my patients comfortable where I'm comfortable as well. And so, but it's kind of just this silent epidemic. A lot of people have pelvic floor prolapse. There's a lot of different symptoms, and we don't talk about it, and we don't talk about that it can be fixed. We just think, oh, you pee when you deadlift, that's normal. It's increased pressure. Of course you're going to pee when you deadlift. No, that's not normal. And a lot of it is that we just don't talk about it. It's unreported. A lot of times people, I can't get it out of my patients unless I ask. And so they won't tell you, or they don't even know what the symptoms are, or they think that they have to be having an active prolapse to be having a pelvic floor issue. And so a lot of it is we don't know it's for general population, we don't know how to, patients, they just don't know how to explain what's going on. And so usually it's up to the clinician to kind of dig a little deeper and see, is this a pelvic floor issue, or are we having low back pain because there's a pelvic floor issue and we've done everything we can to clear out the back pain, but why are we still having pain, So, but we don't talk about it. And so the stats are horrible. And just in the sense of how many people have it, well, we don't know because no one talks about it. So, and no one knows the symptoms and how to classify it. And so, but there's so many roles of the pelvic floor that we forget that it's beyond just peeing when you laugh or peeing when you sneeze. There's, between just support and then, the sphincter role and then sexual role and actually stabilization, which is kind of the part that I focus in a lot on, working with athletes. So
Jessi, let's talk about during the Women's Mind Body Boot Camp and Retreat, will you be taking us through how do we ask questions to pull out, I think it's we've all had that new practice member who's like, I just have the normal headaches. And it's like, no, that's normal. Like, I just have the normal degeneration. No, it's common, but it's not normal. And so I feel like pelvic floor has kind of gone in the same category. Like, oh, you're a lady, you've had kids, or oh, you're a woman, you're 40. Like, you're supposed to have all of these problems. So will you be taking us through how do we do a comprehensive history in order to find out, like, the dysfunction is attached to the pelvic floor?
Absolutely. So obviously I'm going to make it very, very clinical for you guys and relevant so that you have immediate takeaways, and it's stuff that you of course want to practice what you're doing before you do it on your patients. But how do you find out, how do you identify what is normal? What dysfunction is normal? How often are you supposed to be peeing? How often are you supposed to be pooping? What does that look like? And then that way you can kind of identify from there. And those are all questions that you'll ask on a normal intake with a patient anyway, or you should be, especially in the chiropractic world, because we can affect so much of that. So when you talk about that, it's always just, So I'll go over a lot of, how do you talk to patients about this? How do you integrate it? And I like to integrate it first visit when I'm going over what symptoms they have or have had. And I usually bring it up, especially when it comes to stabilization issues. So if I'm seeing a lot of muscular weakness, that's where I really like to bring it up, because it's relevant and people are like, oh, I didn't even think to tell a chiropractor about that. And it's like, well, yeah, like we can help with that. So different symptoms, how to ask questions, how to evaluate it without having to do internal work, because a lot of us, it's just, I don't want to. And so, and then teaching patients what they can do at home, because I will tell you, Kegels, not the answer. Not the answer.
Right. And so then we just kind of go back to wives' tales of, oh, I do my Kegels, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. Right. So then at the retreat, let's talk about the impact of specializing in this category and knowing your stuff. What impact has that had on your business success? Like, how is it bringing in new practice members? What does it have to do with, like, the different opportunities that have opened up to you? How many different experts are in your area that are pelvic floor experts? And are you going to be also talking about how do you take this training and use it to grow your practice? Because obviously education without teaching people and them coming in is kind of pointless. Will you be sharing that too?
Yes, of course. So the big goal with this is obviously teach you guys what you can do clinically with your patients the moment you get home. This should be something that you can just do a few trial runs, practice on yourself, review my slides, things like that. And then you have immediate takeaways. Every goal, if you go to any sort of con ed and you don't have immediate takeaways, things that you can bring to the office Monday morning, they failed you. And so my biggest goal is to make sure that all of you guys can do pretty much everything I do right away. Obviously, there's things that you do want to practice. It's no different when, like, the cranial adjusting boot camp workshop. Obviously, like, I practiced my cranial stuff before I did it on an actual patient. But there's, so different labs, things that you can do with your patients, things that you can have your patients do. There's one pelvic floor PT in this area. And so her and I have worked together on a few things kind of in the past, and still I do send my male pelvic floor patients to her just because I am more comfortable working with female. It's just where my strengths lie, and so I stick where my strengths lie, and I get the patients better that I can, and the patients that are in better hands with someone else, you get them to that person. And so there's one other pelvic floor PT in this area, and so, but from a chiropractic standpoint, I'm it. So it's definitely a huge word of mouth thing, because moms talk. So obviously I see a lot of moms with this, but from an athletic performance aspect too. So a lot of my athletes, they take this and they bring it, and they'll tell their friends or they'll tell their teammates and stuff like that. Of, oh, try this. Jessi taught me this. And then how can I, how do I get in on that? And it's just kind of the word of mouth downfall from there.
And, something I didn't mention when we got started. Hey, there's Angie. So Angie's one of the speakers at the Women's Mind, Body, Spirit Boot Camp, and we'll be doing a Facebook Live here soon too. That I failed to mention about Dr. Jessi. She's a veteran. So this girl had to get her parents' permission to join the military because she was 17 years old. So something I'd really appreciate from all of you who are watching now or who will watch this later, will you just pop in the comment section and say thank you? Thank you for serving our country as a 17-year-old girl who was on the front lines as an EMT, seeing things that most 17-year-olds definitely weren't seeing and weren't doing. So Jessi, my greatest appreciation to you and for you on so many things, including serving our country. I appreciate that. So Jess, as we wrap this up, let's talk about this. What do you think, what are people getting wrong, specifically chiropractors? What are we getting wrong because we don't have proper training with pelvic floor?
A lot of things. So when you talk about getting your patients, my goal with every patient is to get them better faster. How fast can we get you better? If I can get you better in 5 visits, I don't want your 20, I want your 5. And I want to do a lot of great work in that 5. And obviously you'll roll into what, care plans based off of what they need. But what we're missing is we're missing just the training. A lot of times we don't ask the questions, so it just completely gets missed. And when you can address, especially from a stabilization standpoint of what the pelvic floor does and how it works with a lot of stabilization stuff, a lot of core, low back pain, all of that, pelvic floor is part of your core musculature. And if we miss it, we're missing such a huge piece in getting our patients better faster. You're also missing a component of their quality of life that they may not tell you about unless you ask. So, and Kegels are not the answer.
So, I think it's kind of like the basis of why we did the pediatric boot camp, because there's so much that has changed and so much that we don't know. Like, I know health has become so specialized because of the severity and complexity of subluxation complex that we're seeing. And obviously with all of this COVID stuff, people aren't healthier. They're not experiencing less stress. They're experiencing more stress. And I think, we can look at, was pelvic floor that important? Well, let's look. Is it possible that teenagers have pelvic floor issues? For sure, right?
We're concerned about it.
So is it possible that then they're having pain syndromes because of it? Do the medics want to medicate, and do they have anything else for pain syndromes? No, they don't, right? Like, they have medications. And are there repercussions, terrible side effects from those? Yeah. And one of the things Jessi and I were just talking about, kind of a little off subject, but I guess an encouragement to all of you to be more vocal about how you can serve your community. Make sure that you're taking excellent care of yourself. Is the rate of mental health off the charts, suicide, depression that we're seeing. And I think that we're only seeing a small bit of what's going on. I don't know if you just noticed, I shared a picture from Matthew Loop's page of a cafeteria of children, little kids, and how they're spread out and everyone looks like they're in trouble. Like, if that picture was shown pre-COVID, we would all be like, oh my gosh, those kids are all in trouble. Like, what happened that they're all in trouble? They're not in trouble. This is how we supposedly deal with this COVID thing. So I'm super excited for those who joined a little bit later that where we're having it, it's green. So because it's green, it's been a state that's considered healthy, that there aren't risks. So come on over to the Women's Mind, Body, Spirit Boot Camp and Retreat. We get to function as we always have in being together. And we'll give you more details about that when you register. But let's just say it's going to be business as usual. So Jessi, as we end this broadcast, what final words do you want to share with those who are with us right now and who will watch this later?
Sign up to come to the Women Mind Body Boot Camp weekend. It's going to be a blast, first of all, and I'm really excited to meet everybody and catch up with everyone. I feel like we haven't done an event since, man, when did I last see
I love time.
And yeah, so it's going to be a great time. Get out, take care of yourself. I'm not bringing my family. I'm going solo. This is my weekend. So, but make sure that you come, sign up, learn how, I mean, the doctors speaking that I get to share this stage with are absolutely incredible. So I'm really excited about it. Great company, great education, great takeaways that you're going to be able to take home and just implement Monday morning. So it's going to be a great time, and you're missing out if you don't sign up.
I agree. Lots of FOMO on this one for sure. So Jessi, thank you so much for joining us. To all of you who enjoyed this broadcast or who will enjoy it, thanks for being with us. I know there's lots of other things that you can do right now. So thank you for being with us. If we can answer any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat section. I will tell you that Jessi also graciously, we're having discussion rooms with all of the speakers. So Jessi is leading a discussion room about pelvic health. You can pop your name down below or send me a private message and we can get you involved with that. Angie will be doing a discussion room as well on the topics that they're speaking about at the Women's Mind, Body, Spirit Boot Camp and Retreat. So thanks so much to all of you. God bless you. Thanks so much, Jessi, for joining us. See ya.